almost anything. My name, suspiciously, is Nelda Schulte, and my website is neldaschulte.com. And what I'm all about is providing Alberta landlords with do-it-yourself resources, including courses, coaching, a lot of free resources, some paid resources. And by the way, my Landlord 101 course qualifies for the Canada Alberta Job Grant. Just threw that in there. I'm doing this business because when I bought my first rental property, I stepped in a lot of financial and emotional landmines, and I want to help landlords bypass that. The other reason I'm doing this and why I have this wonderful panel with me tonight is because all of us are moving towards centralizing services and resources for landlords in Canada. Because right now, the way things exist, although it's changing, is that if a landlord in Ontario has a property in Alberta, they have to look all over the place to find the resources that they want. And that's why I'm bringing all these great people in, so that you can hear about people from Ontario who do short-term rentals, people who do long-term rentals, people who do eviction services in Alberta. You get to hear about everything on this site. So with that, our topic tonight is common landlording issues, actually top landlording issues. And tonight's guests are Kayla Andrade. I'm going to start with my Kayla on my left. Kayla bought her first rental property at the ripe old age of 18, and that hasn't stopped. She keeps going. She is the president of Ontario Landlords Watch. She is a brand ambassador for Front Lobby, which is a credit reporting and credit building service for landlords and tenants. It's Canada-wide. It's fast member. And she's also a brand ambassador for Tenant Cube, which is a property management software platform for catering to landlords who have small portfolios. We have Don Gray, who is the owner of the Edmonton Eviction Services in Edmonton, Alberta. And he used to be a property manager, and then he decided to do the fun part, which is evictions. I think he's a little crazy, but he's a wealth of information. I'm really glad that he's here. And we have Bill Biko, who is the president of the Educated Landlord. Bill has owned upwards of 50 properties in his day. I don't think he owns quite that many anymore, but he is extremely savvy, and he's also an expert on do-it-yourself evictions. So if you want the step-by-step residential tenants and dispute resolution service, RTDRS process, Bill has written articles and books on that. He does coaching on it. He's fantastic. We have Maria Rekrut, who is an expert in short-term rentals, and she is also she owns and manages the real estate media news, radio and TV channels, and she does a million other things. But that's not why I like Maria. I like Maria because she and I are both former coloratura sopranos, for those of you who like opera. So that was our past, and that's something we share, so hoping you don't like that. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with the
Good to be here.
criteria. Sorry? I thought somebody was asking me something. I'm going to start with the first question. I'm going to throw this one out. What criteria constitutes a good residential rental? So who would like to start with that? Who would like to answer that first? Bill, you're smiling, so I'm thinking that must be...
Okay, I'll go then. There's no one-size-fits-all answer for this. It's got to be something that works, right? So even in my world and how I look at it, and again, it differs with everybody else. Everybody's got their own particulars, but I'm looking for a good rental area. If it's a good rental area, there's going to be lots of tenants around. It's going to be a little bit easier to find tenants when times are rough, and it's going to be way easier when times are good. I need something that cash flows, and not just $50 or $100. I want a lot of cash flow out of a property. I want a big cushion in case, we have an economic downturn, which I've heard could happen at some point. You need to have that cushion. You can move it up when things are great. You can move it down when things are bad, but cash flow is going to save you when times are turbulent. It gives you that much more leverage to move through. And ideally, I want multiple units to rent out. Some properties may work with a single unit, but if I've got 2 or 3 doors in a property, whether it's a up-down suited or whether it's a duplex or a fourplex, at least I've got multiple streams of revenue. If I've got one tenant out, I'm not panicking. I've got time. I've got ability to have cash flow. So that's a short list for me when I'm looking at something.
That's excellent. How about you, Maria?
Oh, I buy good properties in great areas. I don't get junkers. They have to go. The moment I purchase them is the moment someone moves in, and I have not only a positive cash flow, but I also have money towards the mortgage. I've been doing that for 22 years now. And I like very much single family dwellings. That's where I've made my money is through single family dwellings, and I have my own strategy to do that. I do both short, long, and medium length rentals, and that's been my specialty since 2000. So that's for me is good properties in great areas. And my area is a little bit different than Bill is I like a mixed bag. I like seniors, I like families, I like students. I don't want it just to be students or just tenants. I want it to be a mixed bag. So if I go to sell it, then I have a mixed bag of who's going to purchase it for whatever reason. So I have three reasons for going into a property, three reasons how 3 ways of making money with the property when I'm in there, and 3 exit strategies. So that's what I've always been doing. Thanks.
That's excellent. Yeah, I wanted to mention too that Bill did rooming houses. That's not something a lot of people do, and that's something that he did. And he was very successful at. It took up a lot of his time, but he was very good at it. So, and he has resources on that as well. So, Kayla, how about you? What do you think constitutes a good rental property?
Mine is the multifamilies. The multifamilies. I love buying a property that you can start creating more. So you have a triplex and having that little space that is just reconstructing the way that the building is in order to create a fourth unit, and making sure that it's in an area where I can manage it per se, instead of I'm not that adventurous to go out and to get into other out of town properties, so that other people are managing it for me. And I've been doing that for 20 years, really just buying close to home, and always trying to scale, trying to get into the bigger buildings, more of the conforming properties. But at the same time, when you have, in Ontario, we have a 1.2% rent increase. So if we don't have a lot of turnover happening, but the bills are increasing, you now need to get very creative on how you're going to be able to keep continuing to bring in that cash flow, especially when you're buying properties that are just not producing. So you just have to trying to get into the love the long term. It's not a quick get rich quick scheme, as people think it is. It's really a lot of hard work and dedication, but I love the multifamilies and being able to create more units. And now more municipalities are starting to see the need of supply of housing, so they are making adjustments to their city policies, allowing people to create additional units.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. Yeah. Don, do you still have investment properties, or do you just focus on eviction at this point?
No, yes, I do. I love this business from one end to the other. I looked at that question and at a more simplistic view, I guess. It's what constitutes a good residential rental, and that to me singular. What's one would be if you look at a rental, at a good rental, and in looking at it that way, my thought was, if you have people in there are paying on time, are catering with you. That's in my business. That's what I see. The breakdown mostly is, and as it is in marriage and anything else, you got to have good communication and just have a good attitude towards each other and the property. So looking at one single, if you got all 3 things, that's a good rental, in my mind.
Yeah. I actually I
Simple
like that explanation too. So I like the investor viewpoint that Kayla, Bill, and Maria mentioned, and I also like the more granular approach to when you're bringing it down to a tenant, and you're saying what makes it a good rental for you, and that works really well too. It's like who communicate well with you and are easy to deal with and pay the rent on time. So that's because if you have a good investment property, you have crappy tenants, nothing's going to work. Doesn't matter. Okay, so those were all excellent answers. Now the next question, it's kind of a big, broad one. What do you do if you get bad tenants? And I'm going to go back to Don because Don's an eviction guy. So Don, what do people do if they get bad tenants? And I know it's a really broad question, but go ahead, take a stab at it.
I suggest they call Edmonton Eviction Services. and that ugly old guy there will certainly look after you in a very handy and loving manner.
And that's that.
The biggest thing is the biggest thing is to jump on it right away. Don't let things, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now. This is your business. If something's going south, start making plans to fix that. And if it gets great, if it doesn't, well, you got to move on to the next step. So document everything and prepare yourself for the worst if you start not adding up right. And more you do it, the better your gut is, and those little wigglies that say something's not quite right here, and you got to act on those. That's if you get bad tenants, start that process right away.
Yeah, so don't let things go and trust your gut. But I'm a little bit on that one as well. Those are excellent words. You have to have a really good screening process. That's been my best ammunition, my best tool in my arsenal. If I've got a really robust screening process, people have told me that it's easier to get an access card than it is to get into a property that I rent out. But you know what? That's something I'm proud of, because people who are willing to go through those steps are very proud of the fact that they're good tenants, that they've got good credit, they want me to see all of that, and they're happy that I make them go through the paces. They're proud of the fact that they got in, and very seldom do I have problems. Not never, because when you're dealing with humans,
they're
creative.
creative.
Lots of shades of gray, and people have stuff happen to them in their lives that makes someone who's sane and logical act kind of crazy sometimes. Death, divorce, illness, job loss, all those things happen. So, but a good screening process really helps. And as Don says, don't let things go too long. And Kayla, what about you? I mean, Ontario, I'm even scared to ask what happens when you get bad tenants in Ontario.
Well, that's the thing. Like you said, it's that first initial screening process, making sure you try to avoid the bad tenant first. So a lot of our landlords have made the common mistakes of not doing their credit check, so that's why it's like I wanted to become an ambassador to Front Lobby, because it's so important to do that front lobby credit check, getting your long form Equifax credit check done on the tenant. Now with the rent reporting, informing the potential tenants that are coming that you do monthly rent reporting to the credit bureau is really trying to help avoid getting that professional tenant. But now when you do get them, because, even though you may not do those process, or, maybe they said, hey, I got my own credit check, here you go, even though they're so easily forged these days. And so many landlords are able to take on that application that it was real. We have a battle, right? So a lot of our landlords have always been taught here in Ontario that it's better to keep your place empty than to rush a decision and just place it just for the being desperate. So we really want to make sure that you're not rushing into a process in order to put a tenant into that unit. It's better to keep it empty, because that one tenant could cost you $20,000 or more in Ontario in order to start the eviction process right to the end. I know so many at 35,000, 50,000 of rent arrears based on getting that wrong type of tenant in there. You have to work it as, don't believe everything that comes out of the tenant's mouth if based on, hey, I couldn't get my bank wouldn't let me get my funds. They froze it. I didn't get paid, whatever the case may be. Just say, I understand, but here's your notice. It gives you 14 days to pay. I know you will, but I have to give this to you. It protects me, it protects you. And also in Ontario, they can take that piece of paper and bring it to a government social agency and be like, hey, I'm getting an eviction notice. Can you help out with some rent relief, right? So it kind of helps them. But you have that start that process. And a lot of our landlords, if you're in Ontario or in any province, really learn the system before you get into being a landlord, so that you're not being a landlord, trying to spend the time being a landlord, and then also how to learn how to deal with problem tenants. We want to learn that prior to being a landlord, so that you're already ahead of the game. But always making sure that you have your N4, which is in Ontario is a non-payment of rent application. And then after 14 days, you have to do an one application, and then you have to be put in a queue for approximately 2 weeks. It's actually longer. They lied. And waiting for you and your tenant to mediate, and at a point where we would see mediation being a good thing. In Ontario is not good. Like, obviously we're at the board because mediation had broken down. We're there now to get kind of a verdict. And then once you get in front of adjudicator, anything can happen. It could be postponed, it could be adjourned. And then let's say you finally go back to landlord and tenant board, and let's say you finally do get your order. You have 11 days from that order before you can file for the sheriff to come and do the eviction.
So why are you a landlord out there?
Yes.
I
Yes.
started young.
Exactly. Exactly.
But that's why we're trying to come to Alberta. If you have a lot of influx of Ontario people in Alberta, we're coming.
Well, we do.
Ready.
According to the stats, according to stats, there's a lot of interprovincial investment in properties in Alberta because it's cheaper here and because our laws are a little bit more favorable towards landlords than they apply. I would say a lot more favorable than in Ontario. Ontario, I want to shoot myself in the head if I had to go through all of that. So what I'm hearing from Kayla is follow up on stuff, like have a good screening process, follow up right away. You have to, and you're nice about it. You're saying, look, I have to do this. You're not saying you didn't pay your rent, you're a bad person. You're saying, look, I have to do this, you got to go through the process too. And then you have to you have to know the process before you do it. So you need to learn the rules, you need to know the laws before you become a landlord, because doing it when you're in crisis is not the good time to learn.
And I'm still reporting them to front lobby.
And yes, this is what I love, because landlords across Canada can go online and they can see a good tenant or a bad tenant. You don't have to go look at individual Facebook groups, hundreds of them across Canada, in one place. So that's great.
And it's about
Bill,
the payment history.
Sorry, go ahead, Kayla.
No, it's just the payment history, getting that into the credit bureau, so it's on the Equifax credit report. So as you other landlords are checking their credit, I hope they're checking the tenant's credit report, is that they're going to start to see that payment history.
Right. So in the past, just to clarify for people who don't know about this, in the past, rent or lack of rent payments didn't affect your credit rating, and now it does.
Yeah, a lot of people thought they needed a judgment. They thought, get the judgment, go to the landlord and tenant board, get the judgment, then go to small claims court, then it goes to collections. We're skipping that little man in the middle now. So you get to be able to do it monthly and start impacting or improving the tenant's credit at the same time.
Right. Well, I'm just going to turn this one over to you as well, because you've followed the RTDRS. You've written books on it, courses on following the RTDRS. What do you do if you get a bad tenant? What's your process?
Well, everybody's hit on some great stuff already, and a lot of it's exactly that. I do a lot of consulting with landlords who are having problem tenants, and they didn't know the rules beforehand, and it's put them into a trap, or they didn't document stuff, as Dawn mentioned, and it's created a trap for them. You've got to document all those interactions, whether it's a phone call, put it on paper, get copies of that out, make sure you have a paper trail. Be nice to the tenants. That actually comes back a lot, especially if you get to one of the hearings out here. When you've shown you tried to work with a tenant and you were trying to be the good guy, and the tenant's the one who's been basically mucking it all up and causing the issues, the residential tenancy board is pretty good with you out here, and they can see that, and they can register that if you've got a paper trail. So you create that paper trail showing you've been doing all the right stuff, trying to work with a tenant, and they just keep on screwing up, and it's typically a fairly easy eviction out here. Really easy, Kayla. Really easy.
I'm coming, buddy. I will. I'm going to cash out.
Yeah, and
just put the Band-Aid off and pour lemon juice in the wound there, Bill.
As everybody else said, it's far better to be vacant than to get a problem tenant in. It costs you far too much to get that problem tenant, and all the headaches just make things worse. And as to your screening, screening is huge. I've been teaching screening courses across North America for years, and if you take that extra time, it can save you so much headache later. It's not perfect because, as you mentioned, there's divorce, there's illness, there's death, there's job loss. I've seen all of them, and the best tenant in the world can suddenly become squirrely because things aren't working out that well. And that's where you got to keep those lines of communication open. You got to be offering, and you got to document that you're offering to help them and get them through. And I've carried tenants in the past. I've had fantastic tenants that I've carried to help them out, and it's rewarded me and it's burned me. So
Mhm.
you just got to walk that fine line, and don't take any chances you can't afford to lose on and not live through.
You know, I get these. I also offer screening courses, as does Maria, tenant screening.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I have a Facebook group called Alberta Landlords Watch. I had a much longer name before, but I abbreviated it. And I frequently get texts from people who are in a horrible crisis situation. You know, tenants been violent, the stuff has been going on and on, or two sets of tenants upstairs and downstairs. It's escalated over a long time. The landlord hasn't done anything, and now it's reached a point where there's no return, and it's a horrible situation. And that's when these people text me and say, "What can I do?" And I'm like, "Oh, you know, it's too late." Everybody here has mentioned
Yes.
start right from the beginning. Like, don't let things go. For me, if a tenant is late with the rent, like if they're supposed to pay at noon on the 1st and they don't, I text them. Or I get ahead of it and I text and I say, friendly reminder, today's the 1st, your rent is due. I send out a text every week. And, you know, that way, if people forgot, you know, you get them right off the bat. If they don't respond, then you can get on the phone and call them. You know, you have to kind of deal with things fairly quickly. You can't wait and wait and wait, because it just bites you in the ass later on.
Mhm.
Um, Dawn mentioned, and Maria, do you have anything else to add to this, or should I give you the next question?
Well, no, if I could add, what you're saying and everyone else is why start off with a good tenant? You know, just don't take anyone. And myself, I developed a course, Landlord Boot Camp, that I've been teaching for a number of years. But what I'm really, really surprised is how few landlords are willing to take the time and pay the money to take a course to become better landlords. They don't seem to understand that this is a business, and it's going to bite them in the back if they don't take it seriously. And most people aren't taking it seriously. And I have, like you, my own group, a number of groups, but one of them is Ontario Landlords Association, and people post down where their problems are. So myself, when I had my first problem with a tenant many years ago, I went right away to a paralegal, and she did all the work for me. And I won every single case in court because she did the work. I did not want to be bothered. The only time I think I filled out an N4 once in my life. The rest of the time I just give it to the paralegal. But having said that, I haven't had a bad tenant in 12 years. And I think it's because I really screened them from the very first moment they talk to me on the phone. And many of them self-eliminate themselves within 10 minutes of talking to me on the phone. I think that's the key, is let them self-eliminate themselves. Then we'll come back and say, well, why wasn't I picked? They know exactly why they weren't picked. They self-eliminate themselves. So the key to have a worry-free real estate investment business is the tenant. It's the management of the business. And the biggest management is of the tenants that come into your home.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I'm getting some really good reinforcement here. So where can you get a good rental lease for free? Now, I paid for mine. I buy mine through either I bought them through ARLA or through Calgary Residential Rental Association or through whatever municipality that I lived in, because the ones that I bought were created by a team of lawyers. They were written in plain language and they covered all of the legal bases. So I didn't want to create my own. Initially, I created my own, and it was 47 pages and it was a mess. It was a dog's breakfast. I remember my lawyer looking at it and going, "Really, Nelda? Did you really give this to who created this?" I'm like, "Oh." So that's when I started buying my leases. But this is a question that comes up fairly often: is where can I get a good residential lease for free? Who would like to offer their advice here?
Well, in Ontario, we have to have our government standard lease, so I'm guessing it's free. But we don't want it.
No, not a good one.
But you got to get yourself into addendums, you know. So we got the basic, which is your standard. Everyone has to be doing our standard lease, which you can find that on the Landlord and Tenant Board website, government website. And then we have the addendums, which from a lawyer that we got to create addendums is like 30 pages. So it covers everything but the kitchen sink. So you really just want to take anything out that's just not fitting to your type of rental. And then we give that out to our members. We want to make sure our landlords are fully equipped with what they need in order to make sure that they're set up for success, no matter if they have a good or a bad tenant.
That's excellent. So obviously different than in Alberta. So Bill and Don, what's your advice here for where do you get a good residential rental lease for free or otherwise?
Well, I'll jump in. Whenever somebody's asking for something for free, I get hesitant right away.
Mhm.
And it's like, you really want something free? You can probably, go on the internet and find something free. And I have leases I sell. I've got custom leases and documentation that goes with that off of one of my sites. But, you need, your lease is a living document. It changes as the rules change. It changes as the tenant situation changes. It changes as the different properties changes. I've got a lease that talks about an elevator, or when I have condos, I've got leases that talk about garages when there's garages involved. It's just constantly evolving, and there's different types for everything. So there's no single generic lease out there, and then landlords customize it all themselves. So it's almost off-putting to have somebody ask me just to give them my lease, and it's like, I put hundreds of hours into this.
Mhm.
It's like,
Mhm.
you want me to just give stuff away?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a riling point, but I tell people, go look on the internet if you want something free. I do offer them. You can find them through Calgary Residential Real Estate Association. No, there's a different name for that, but there's multiple different places here in Calgary and a few up in Edmonton as well that you can get them. And again, you still have
But
to
they're not
customize
free.
them.
No, and they're not free.
No.
They're CRA and RMLF. You have to pay a membership fee, and then you have to pay for the leases. So they kind of get you two ways. Don, do you want to add to this?
Well,
Don, are you?
when I saw that question, my first thought was, if you get it for free, it's that much. So I'm a proponent of specialized, or of what fits you the best. That like the glove for O.J. Simpson there. We offer custom lease as well, geared to your property. If it's a tree, it's out in the country, and you got water, or got a well water, or you got to haul water in, and there's all kinds of different things, outbuildings, and so you can customize that, and some and particular things for each property, and we build them. I charge a little bit of money for them, but we build them so that owner can adjust, go, and so it's a long-term investment, and that when I see a lot of payments in my business, and most people actually quite a few out there that don't, but either way, some are cause the owner grief because it's not comprehensive enough. It's too generic, and it doesn't fit their situation, and it ends up costing. So certainly have a base lease, and get some help if you can. If you can't, you got to go through the RTA and build the RTA. It's a twofold thing there. It teaches you what it says there. You have it in as well. So that's my 2 cents.
That's a good 2 cents. Thank you for that. Utilities. I mean, this is a big question. Who pays for utilities, landlords or tenants? And I guess I'll start this one because it depends on what's going on in the economy for me. Sometimes I include utilities on a package, and I did that during COVID. I had rent and utilities together simply because it was easier to package. It made it more attractive to tenants. Other times I've separated them. So I don't know. Who would like to, Maria? Would you like to start with this one? Who pays for utilities?
Yeah, I've tried a number of ways, just like yourself, but I've tried that they would pay a portion. Like when I had a triplex, I asked each one of them to put a third in, and then we had our own added in, but they refused to pay. So, after a while, so I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I just include it. So I charge more money for the rent, thinking about the utilities. Now, if somebody's renting a whole house from me, then they take over the utilities. So they have to have all the utilities in their name. They have to prove it, and also they have to get the insurance. So it depends. It depends on the situation, just like you were saying, Nelda. It depends on the situation. But when I tried to get extra from the people, it just didn't work. So I don't do that anymore. It's either rolled in or they have to pay it on their own, and they have to prove that they're able to substantiate those payments.
Yeah, and rolling it in, you can kind of estimate it now. Utilities in Alberta have gone up another 40%, which is like, yay.
Yes.
We produce all the oil here, and we always pay more for it. That always irks me. But you can kind of estimate it. Like if I think, okay, if the average price of utilities is $500 a month, then I just include that in. So also everything included in, and then they cover their own. I don't ever pay for cable and internet because everybody's very picky about what they want. They can figure that out. So how about you, Kayla? What do you do for utilities?
So again, so if it's obviously individually metered, we obviously like to look at those type of properties as a money good bang for your buck. If you have rental units, like we have a 5-plex that are individually metered for gas, water, and hydro. But if you do have a situation where you do have a duplex situation, yes, all inclusive would be the easier way to go, just because sometimes you can't do the individual metered with water, but if you are doing renovations, then at least sub-metering it for hydro would be very a good idea, really, to protect the cash flow of the property. But if not, if you're working it, it's a 3-bedroom upstairs, a 2-bedroom downstairs. I like to put a rental cap on that property so that it's a 60-40 split based on the bedrooms. Then I tell the tenants that, it's going to be this much included, but the over usage will be the 60-40 split. And that will kind of allow them to really respect the utility, knowing that if there is over usage, that they do have to pay extra. And if they don't pay it, then I will report that to the credit bureaus on a monthly basis. So it now kind of works into that tie that there's now accountability for them not paying the utilities. It's going to be also reported to the credit bureaus, and it could impact their credit history.
Oh, good on you. Okay, Bill, you've had the multi-families and the multi-house and the multi-everything. What did you do for utilities?
This is kind of an evolving thing. And I guess what everybody needs to be aware of, and first for you, Nelda, our really high rates now are still lower than Ontario rates were a year ago. So we're not that bad. Yeah, their rates are
still You're still kind of pouring lemon juice in Kayla and Maria's veins.
I'm starting to see why you invited me, Nelda. I'm starting to see that.
Rates are going to continue to go up. The more green evolution we do, the more pressure it's going to put on converting a lot of this stuff and raise costs. We've got the European stuff going on right now, which is putting tremendous pressure on gas prices. And a lot of our electricity comes from natural gas, especially in Alberta. So rates are going to continue to go up. So it can be kind of dangerous with some of the structures. I used to advise people to look at maybe a flat rate. And in Alberta, the rules, again, are different. If you have a $300 per month utility bill for, say, an upstairs unit, charge that as a $300 flat rate for utilities and $1,100 for the rent. If you're advertising a little bit lower for the rent, that way you get seen by a few more people who may be expecting to pay utilities when you're advertising. But with the changing evolution of utilities, it may be worthwhile to overshoot that $300 mark. It's definitely going to be important to put overage clauses in your leases here if there's excess amounts over a certain amount. And you can figure out averages for the year. But again, the service charge costs are continuing to rise. The actual cost of the utilities are continuing to rise. So it's almost case by case, and you have to review it every year. if not sooner, just to stay on top of it, especially with the evolution of it right now. It's not that nice stability that we used to have a few years ago.
Mhm. Yeah,
So no
you're
one,
right.
I don't
my
know.
answer, no one size fits all, which is good to
No,
know.
definitely not.
And then,
Mhm.
but I'm going to talk about I talk about this, or I have talked about this a lot in my Facebook group. Mandatory tenants insurance. So I'm guessing everybody makes their tenants insurance mandatory, but tenants insurance has changed drastically, and you can't always have unrelated people under the same insurance umbrella. They're
Mhm.
changing it so that I think the minimum is, or maximum for some insurance companies is 3. You can only have 3 unrelated people in one rental premises under one insurance umbrella. Some it's fewer, some it's more. But that's something that they don't really publicize a lot. I had to really dig around to find it. So what are people doing about tenants insurance? I'd like to hear from. Let's see. Let's start with Kayla.
Okay, you really want me to talk about that one? Our standard lease has a little checkbox to say if the landlord requires the tenant to have tenant insurance. We always tick that off. Do I check? Not so much, just because of the concept that I'm checking you off that you want it. If
Mhm.
there's something down the road, you don't have it. This is covering their belongings and their content. But at the same time, because we check that off, if we do ask the tenant to show proof of it at any time and they don't, then you can actually potentially get them evicted for not having it if they fail to provide you with that type of evidence. Really weird. I don't really care if they have their stuff, just letting them know that if anything happens here,
Mhm.
the rain, fire, act of God, I'm not covering your stuff.
Yeah.
So if the roof leaks and your mattress is done, don't be knocking on my door looking for a new mattress because you got that little checkbox on your lease, right? So again, it's just still something that the tenants should get to protect themselves, especially if there is some type of fire, flood. Maybe their tenant insurance will help them relocate for a
Mhm.
short-term accommodations for floods and
Mhm.
fires, which is great instead of them looking for the landlord to pay for those type of accommodations. So I
Yeah.
like using. Oh, do you have tenant insurance? It's like, sorry, not here.
And everyone thinks fires and floods are going to happen, but having a property in Fort McMurray, which has been my problem child from the word go, there's been, well, 3 floods. One of them affected me. One of them affected the whole city. Then there was a fire affected the whole city. My
Oh,
house
wow.
my area was evacuated twice in 3 years. So
Oh, my. Oh, my.
tenants who had insurance were able to live someplace else. They had their meals and clothing and those sorts of things accommodated. The ones who did not have insurance were really up a creek without a paddle, literally in some cases. So I always use that example for them. In Fort Mac, I make it absolutely mandatory, and I want to see proof, and I keep a copy of it because
Mhm.
I can't cover you because I won't even be able to get rent when these things happen, but to cover yourself, this is for your own protection. And usually, when I scare them with the fire and flood stories and the biblical proportions of caterpillars and locusts and other ways God smites Fort McMurray, they're usually scared into buying it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I also used to have it under my name. I'd have umbrella insurance. When I had more properties, I was able to do that. But now that I have fewer properties, I can't. So, Don, what are your thoughts on tenants insurance? Making it mandatory, not included, not included.
Well, personally, for my units, that's part of before they can get the keys, have all the rest of the stuff. Now, going down the road, I'm kind of like don't always check to make sure. Usually on a renewal, if they're proof of insurance, but something happens in between, they cancel it. I don't know. There was somebody. For some, they would let you know if the um, if the tenant advocated or not. Now, in the business side of this, I see a lot of counterclaims or claims from tenants to landlords, expect because there was a flood or because something happened and it cost the tenant money. And, every one of those is costing the landlord some money to hire me or do it themselves. And 90, I'm going to say 95% of those cases are died in favor of the landlord, but it's time and effort, and you got a tenant that are extremely angry because they felt they've been really put out. And I feel for them, but on the same token, they need to know that in advance. And us too. And
Yeah, you have to protect yourself. You have to be proactive.
Oh,
how to be a good tenant.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that, that's my take on it.
That's a good one. So here's a question that actually Don said he gets asked all the time in his eviction business. If tenants aren't paying rent, can you shut off the utilities?
No. And you can't take away the door either. You can't take the front door away for repair. Neither one of them.
Yeah.
I had
No.
a landlord tell me that personally, that she shut off the door and then went off on a trip and then got the call from the police officer telling her, you got to bring back the door.
Can I take it back to insurance for just a minute? So one other thing that we forget about is we also have to worry about tenant negligence. That's where the insurance really comes into play. So if the tenant starts a fire, they were cooking something, your insurance will cover it, but your rates will go up, whereas their insurance would cover it and your rates wouldn't go up. So that can be huge as well. So
Yeah.
that's my
insurance is attached to you as a person. It is not attached to the property. And that was something I found out the hard way. Even if you make a phone call to your insurance company and say, I think I might have a flood here. Can someone come and take a look at it? Bam, that's a strike against you. If you get a couple calls, even if they come and they look at something, even if they don't fix it, they start counting. And so it could be like 5 strikes and you're out. I've been bumped by insurance. And when I called them and I said, it was a flood, it wasn't there was sewage backed up. None of these were my fault. And they're like, 5 claims in 3 years.
Wow. You know what I do is I insure my properties under the commercial. It's all commercial. I don't want to be bothered with residential because with commercial, I have found they take care of you very quickly. They don't ask too many questions, and the problem gets solved. So I suggest to everyone, if you have a rental, go under the commercial division. They treat you better. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be more expensive, but they sure take care of if there's any problems. And myself, person's not going to get the keys to my building without them proving that they have the insurance. And then I look at the insurance policy, and if the renewal is coming up shortly, I say you have to send me a copy of that. And that's all in an email sent to them explaining that they have to do that.
Okay.
Very important. Very important. Yeah.
That's great. If I sell my house, how do I get rid of the tenant?
Oh, good
This
luck
one
in Ontario.
goes. Yeah, good luck in Ontario, but it goes back to the Residential Tenancy Act in whatever province that you're living in. So this is where you need to know the rules. And by the way, I offer a Know the Rules 2-module course on my website, neldaschulte.com. So you can learn it in your own time, but you need to know it because this is a question I get asked too. I have landlords calling me saying, I sold my house, the tenant won't leave. What do I do? Well, what kind of a lease did you put them on? Is it fixed? Is it periodic? Dawn, how would you like to answer this one? If I sell my house, how do I get rid of my tenant?
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck in Ontario.
So I get that probably daily. And it's starting to cool off, but now the market's cooling off a bit. But the answer is probably not. Let's take a look at and go from there. It often is just a lack of on the landlord's part, they think they can just go in and throw them out and all's great. I say that only works if you know a number of people in a motorcycle.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it doesn't work. Doesn't work otherwise. And when I explained to him, in Alberta, there's only 5 reasons you can terminate a periodic tenancy. Some people don't even know what a periodic tenancy is. Landlords,
Mhm,
yeah, I got
mhm.
fixed. It goes like once a year or something. And, okay, well, what is it? And we have to explore all that. So once they realize that because rules, and that's to protect both sides, that they're now doubly frustrated, and and they haven't what the tenancy is like, or they are they paying on time, selling bicycle part out of the house, or what is it? What's happening there? It's an eviction.
Yeah, your voice is freezing, Don. I don't know if anyone
But
else can hear him
and
freezing.
Same problem here.
Yeah,
they want
your voice is getting pixelated, Don.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I try to eat them and then go from there.
Yeah, Don, you're freezing.
What's that?
Maybe
You're
I can
freezing
jump
out.
in here.
You're
Yeah.
freezing.
I'll
Okay,
jump in
Bill.
here for a minute. So the biggest thing, like Don said, is that the landlords have no idea what the rules are.
Yes,
And
I
my
agree.
thing I always throw out when I hear a landlord's trying to sell their rental property is, how are you trying to sell it? Are you selling it as a rental property, or are you selling it as a single family home, or whatever? Does it work, especially with the current values? Somebody who bought the property 15 years ago might have bought it at a really ridiculous price versus what it is now. It doesn't work as a rental now. Figure that out first. If it works as a rental, then you may want to consider leaving the tenants in there as part of the gig.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
realistically, you want to get the tenants out. A good landlord who knows what they're doing is probably going to
Yeah.
want to pick their own tenants.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to make the Ontario landlord sad here, but in Alberta,
I'm already
with the,
sad, guy.
with a
Can't help it.
fixed-term lease, we're not obligated to renew. So if you're smart and you're planning on selling your property in 6 months, you have a fixed-term lease that ends in 6 months, and then you don't have the problem. And if you've got tenants in it, it's not really going to be a rental property. Why would you be showing it with the tenants in place? You're going to get more money getting them out,
Mhm.
getting the place polished up, and making it presentable. They're losing their home. They may not necessarily be more eager to keep it clean or organized or any of the above. And start first by figuring out, will it be a rental property or will it not be a rental property?
Mhm.
And then from there, get rid of the tenants in most cases, whether it's the end of your fixed term, which all landlords in Alberta should be on, but they aren't, right, Don?
Mhm.
And if it is a month to month,
Mhm.
you could be dealing with a cash for keys situation. And you have to figure out what that number is going to be, especially in today's market. My daughter went through this recently. Their lease was up in October, but the landlord was trying to sell the place. And we kind of walked them through. They ended up getting their first month's rent paid by the landlord, all their moving expenses, and it kind of worked out in both parties' interests. So you just got to fit somewhere along those rules that makes it work.
Yeah. So you have to pay them out sometimes to make them leave
Yeah.
if you didn't do your due diligence and figure out what kind of a lease they should be on when you sell the property. But it's not, yeah, I've had people tell me this before. Well, it's my property. I can just sell it. And I'm like, do you have a legal lease in place? You have to honor the lease. That's the way it
But
works.
I've explained to landlords I could probably make hundreds of thousands of dollars helping the tenants stay in longer and
Yeah.
screwing the
For
deals up.
sure.
Yeah. So how do you want to play it, right? The
Yeah.
tenant says, "Yeah, we're going to leave on the 30th." Oh, well, I can't find a place. Now the sales contract is frustrated, or you're in
Mhm.
breach of the sales
Mhm.
contract.
Yeah.
How much is that going to cost you? So
Yeah.
suddenly, instead of paying 2,000 or 5,000 to get them out,
Mhm.
maybe it's 30,000 to save
Mhm.
50,000 in legal fees.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yikes.
very difficult times for landlords now, Nelda. And that's why I always say, you've got to know your business. You have to know the rules, RTA, LTB, and be smarter than everybody else. Use the resources of a paralegal if you need to, a lawyer, whatever it is, learn how you can get around some things that you need to get around legally, but you have to know your business. It's not a game anymore. It's not a hobby. This is a very serious business where you can lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's been proven over this time of the pandemic. Yeah,
Yeah.
And there are ways to work within the rules that work
sure, of course,
for both sides.
of course there is. Of
Yeah,
course there is.
I just finished giving someone a lecture. Actually, I knew the Toastmaster group, and he was writing we were writing a dialogue about unregistered occupants, and he was saying, well, all of his questions were around, well, what gives you the right for telling people what they can do in your rental property? I'm like, have you learned anything from what I've been writing here? You have to know the rules. Of course, you can tell them what's going on.
Yes,
We
of
live in a
course.
country that's governed by rules. That's why we've got a side of the road you can drive on. You can't just decide whatever suits your fancy that day. There are rules for everything. There are rules for housing. You need to learn them. So yeah, I get frustrated with that too. It's like, he's been on my website or my Facebook group for over a year. I'm always talking about the RTA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's missed it. I said, just because you don't want to learn it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It exists.
Exactly. Yeah. Good
Okay,
work,
so
Nelda.
here's a good work to all of you for having your Facebook groups that talk about it and host guests that also go into it in great detail. Don, this one's a question for you, hoping that your microphone doesn't freeze because your voice kept freezing when you were speaking the last time. This was your question that you get asked as an eviction specialist. The 14-day notice is over. Can I change the locks? Speaking of the RTA.
No.
Short answer, no. Short answer, no. Long answer, no.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, the answer is not likely. Check to see if they've gone. If they're gone, and then take back the place and change the locks and get it ready to re-rent. But if they're there, no, you cannot go and change the locks. And I get I get asked that a lot in different forms, and the answer is always no, unless they're all gone. They're empty. The place is empty.
Yeah, very true.
Shortcuts?
Yeah.
No, there's no shortcuts.
You too, Bill?
So often, the 14-day notice is up and they didn't leave. Can I go change the locks?
You wish. We wish, right? We wish.
Oh,
We wish.
We
Take
wish
an AK-47 with you, and then everybody be out of the game. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, that all good answers, all no's, and that was that.
Yeah.
Okay, this one I like, and this is something that hasn't happened, knock on wood, to me, but I hear about it all the time, especially in Ontario. My former current tenant has served me with a notice of hearing. What do I do? How about Kayla?
So the tenant served the landlord? Oh yeah. What's the reason? Is it a maintenance? Did you kick them out unlawfully for their own because you said that you were going to move into the home? Give me a situation. But either way, the best way, if a tenant is bringing you to the landlord and tenant board court, chances are they're coming very equipped with a legal representation. So I would assume that the landlords should get legal representation too, especially if it is about maintenance or if they are borderline. They told the tenants to leave because their family are moving in, but they didn't really give the proper forms, and then the landlord re-rented it back out. There's so many different situations that could arise there, but always get fully educated about the process, but definitely look into speaking with a legal rep just to make sure that you got yourself fully covered, especially when they're trying to go after money.
Yeah.
And this is another point that tenants have become much more savvy than they used to be. A lot of tenants the RTA really well.
Oh,
So,
hon, they're on TikTok now. They're on TikTok saying, "Hi, I had my landlord say, do you want to renew my lease?" And I said, sure. And he tried to make me pay $2,300, which is $100 more. And then the same guy's doing the other character going, did you know that you can only raise the rent to 1.2%? And I'm like, in the comments, except if the place is built after 2018, then it's no rent control.
Yeah.
But they definitely are fully equipped. And you know why they're fully educated is because if you look on government city websites, the education is there for the tenants.
Yes.
They always feel like
Yeah.
poor tenants, but never take into consideration that, you know, landlords are not all rich. They are just barely making it by. They're using it as a long-term, you know, gain for their financial future, the retirement plan. And sadly, our government really wants to see the landlords and the tenants fight each other so that the tenants are not fighting the government and saying, you guys are not really doing your part, the housing industry. So we really want to make sure that when we are advocating for changes, such as not having to go to the landlord and tenant board to deal with a non-payment of rent, or to go to the landlord and tenant board in order to evict a tenant because you want to move in, or that you're selling for the new owner to move in, we want to make sure that we do create a fair system for both good landlords and good tenants, because that's the only way we're getting that ear to our government, just showing that we have bad landlords. Yes, we have bad tenants. We do need to create a very fair balanced system because we're losing our housing stock because of the way the current system is.
Yes.
Well, the recent stats that I read about just a few months ago is that I think 40% of home ownership is by landlords in Canada.
How much?
40%, 40.
Oh, well over 60 to 70 small landlords.
But that means that most people are not private homeowners in Canada. That the landlords are the private homeowners in Canada.
And
anyway.
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the government doesn't understand that. You know, they always say we're a minority, the landlords. We're not. We're the majority. You know, but you know, and I know Kayla has been very fighting and advocating just like I have with my groups, and the government just doesn't listen. They don't listen, you know. So it's like you're blowing in the wind now. That's the way I feel about it. But I'm glad Kayla keeps going. Keep going, Kayla.
Hey, you're still coming on with me, Maria. Don't you be like that. You ain't giving up now. I know.
You know what? I have fought so many battles. I have won a lot of battles, but I've lost a lot. But I'm petering out. That's why the new generation that's coming up, and you're the new generation, my love. That's you.
We started this, Maria. I
know. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Yeah, we came a long way. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
The best thing now for landlords, no matter which province, it's about creating that congregating, you know, really working the network and really helping each other navigate through the system to educate, and also that tenant screening part of it, right?
Yeah,
making sure that they are fully equipped with everything that they need for doing the tenant screening. And then at the same time, get into that advocacy, get very embedded into your municipalities, your region, your provincially federal politics, and understand what's happening so that you can always have that voice at the table. And that's what we've always been championing, you know, always to have our voice. So that's why we're doing conferences, really bringing the elected officials involved so that they can see from people boots on the ground. We have our REITs, you know, they say that one out of 20 units is what they provide. So they're even showing that they're not even a big housing supply supporter, but they've been doing their part in trying to help the tenants. And between the big guys and the little guys, they need us. And we're telling you, if you really want us, you need this to change, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, good for you. Good for all of us who are advocating.
Yeah,
that's what we bring.
This question comes up all the time. My good long-term tenants haven't paid rent for a couple months and they won't answer me. So what happens if you have tenants who will not communicate with you? How
Paper
about that?
talks. Paper.
Oh yeah, I haven't had that problem in many years, but if I had it, I would make sure my paralegal got involved. that's the one thing I would do. I wouldn't be running and chasing them. I'm not going to waste my time. So I, pass it on to the paralegal, let her take care of it. She can call them up. She can negotiate with them. She can talk to them. So I save my energy and my time for my business, which is building my business and not chasing tenants that don't want to pay. But I haven't had that happen in many years now. I don't.
Yeah, call Dawn. That's the one.
There you go. We'll call Dawn.
Don't better call Saul. Better call Dawn.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm calling Dawn from Ontario. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Don't make me call Dawn from Alberta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fix them.
Yeah.
Fly
He's a
down
terrier.
here.
He's a terrier.
Bill, what do you
Call
do?
Bill. He's the tough one.
Okay.
Yeah, call Bill.
It's you can't just let it slide 2 months. And I mean, Don hears this all the time as well. It's like, my tenants haven't paid for 3 months. What do I do? Well, you go back to that first day they were late and give them a 14-day eviction notice if it was the first time. You've created a paper trail now. You post it, you email it, you text them that you've done all this. You've created a paper trail. You try to get them to respond and go, yeah, I saw it. Okay, great. Now you got confirmation they have it.
Yeah.
You follow up, you get paid. If it's not done within the 14 days, or if you feel that nothing's going to move forward in Alberta, you file with the RTDRS for non-payment. If it's a repeat history, instead of filing for non-payment, you file for breach of payment terms, which is in Alberta, if they file for non-payment and they pay, basically they get out of it. If you fail for breach of payment terms, then you can get them out, but you have to have a repeated history of non-breach of payment terms. So again, it's understanding the rules and it's staying on top of stuff and not letting it slide for 2 or 3 months. So often the landlord goes, hey, I'll give them a little extra time. They'll get caught up. You got to protect your assets.
They'll never get caught up.
So,
They'll never get caught up. No way.
Yeah. Occasionally it happens. I've had it happen, but I actually evicted a tenant. I got a court order for payment processing or for payment schedule. And she was in tears when I served her with the documents, basically saying, I'm evicting, we're going to court, we're going to a hearing, but I'm not evicting you. I want to set up a payment schedule. You're behind. I know you're good people. I know the economy's been tough, but this is to protect me. And we're going to get through this. So we did the hearing and I laid out the payment schedule, and they've both been able to get new work by that time. It all worked out perfectly. They got all caught up, and it can work. And it's understanding the system and understanding protecting yourself.
Exactly.
Versus going, I think they're going to pay.
Yeah. For sure.
We call it a Cinderella order, and I'm going to say 40%, 35-40% of my cases are settled that way, and I'm going to say probably of that 40%, I'm going to say probably 80% follow through and pay. There's some that'll agree to it just to get a little extra time, or really don't care. They're just this is a stopgap thing, but vast majority, and you can tell who they are when you're talking to them and how upset they are, and realistically upset, not just crocodile tears.
But wait, Nelda says this tenant's not talking to us though, right?
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
we don't have the crocodile tears. We don't know nothing.
That's right.
You're out of here.
And I get lots of that. I get lots of that too. And then once you serve them the notice of hearing, all of a sudden they become chatterboxes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Wait a minute.
What?
I didn't get it. I don't know anything about it.
You don't have to do this.
I never had to evict anybody, but I had one tenant who didn't want to leave when it was time for him to leave. And he said I couldn't get him out. While he was arguing, and he started swearing. I hung up on him, and I just called my lawyer, and I said, Katie Delicus, this is the situation. He wrote him a letter, and the guy called me the next day and said, I'm out. So he left by noon. So at that point, I just thought, it's not worth my time. He's not going to listen to me. I'll get my lawyer to contact him, and it worked. Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna end with one final question. I'd like all of you to answer, not all at once, though, of course. What is one word of advice you could give to landlords? That's one thing they need to learn about landlord. Just one thing. And I know there are a million, but choose one. I'm going to start with Kayla.
Oh, good golly. Well, it's a giver now. So for our landlords, it's about getting to learn about rent reporting. I think that's going to save them a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of grief, and making sure that they're able to get the right type of tenant into their unit by informing them that they do monthly rent reporting to the credit bureaus. You're going to really see the excitement in people who want to build and improve their credit, and you're going to see some hesitancy from ones that know that they don't want to pay type of rent, and making sure that they're able to do their credit checks. Like, do the credit checks and don't take the tenant's credit check. That is such a, I talk to landlords all the time on the phone. You go through what they're going through, and then I go back with them to be like, what is your red flags? You know, what was the problem beforehand? So you start to take on that knowledge of what those red flags were and bring that to the community so that we can prepare other landlords to avoid other future mistakes.
Okay, so rent reporting is your number one piece of advice. Thank you. Don, how about you? Besides Better Call Don.
Besides knowing my number by heart, my phone number by heart, I would say know
what
know
is
the
it?
RTA. Understand the RTA.
And the RTA is the Residential Tenancies Act. Residential Tenancies Act. Each province has a Residential Tenancies Act. So let's know the RTA.
Yeah.
Excellent
Maybe call it
advice.
something different.
No.
but,
One piece of advice for landlords.
Well. Take a course or join a landlord group, and preferably a paid landlord group where you get information.
Not free.
paid-
I'm free.
Well,
I give good
free
stuff
work.
free for 12 years.
Free works, but when people get something for free, they don't take it. It's not as valuable to them. When they have to pay a little bit, they pay a little more attention, and they seem to get more out of it.
Yeah.
You get the
And
good stuff in the paid groups. The
There
free
you
ones,
go.
you never know
There
who
you
you're getting in there, so you gotta.
Yeah. But if you start
Amen,
getting
yeah.
into some of those groups, like any of the groups that any of us run here, you're going to get some good free information, which should lead to some more even better paid information,
Yes,
which just makes your
absolutely.
life easier. And
Yes.
there's nothing more frustrating than a cheapskate landlord who doesn't want to pay for anything,
Yeah.
wants all the answers, but still has all the nightmares. And Don, I know you see it all the time. I see it all the time. I had to take my phone number off my website because people would constantly call me asking for free advice. And it's like, listen, I put tens of thousands of hours into this. You know, my knowledge is invaluable.
That's right.
So, you didn't even buy me coffee.
Yeah, or even thank me for it, right? I mean, it's ridiculous,
So
really.
you either pay on the front end for taking
yeah.
the course, or you pay on the back end by paying paying documentation services, or paying a paralegal if you're in Ontario. So you choose how you're going to pay, but you are going to pay. So Bill's advice:
down these.
educate yourself. Okay.
Yeah,
Maria?
Pay me now or pay me more later.
Yeah, you either pay with time or money. Myself, I suggest they get educated. You should be studying about being a landlord, being a real estate investor for at least 100 hours before you even touch anything, before you even look at a house. So you can look at a house, but you don't buy it. First thing, study and educate yourself. Second thing, get a mentor, a coach, or somebody. And I'm not talking about these coaches that charge you $5,000. I'm talking about any one of us here are great coaches. We're in the business for a long time. We're just we're giving this information right now tonight for free. And just like you, Kayla, I've been giving information for free for 22 years, but I can't do it anymore. I don't have the strength anymore, right?
I can't help it.
But you're so younger than me. You're so much younger than me, my love. You're so much
I
younger.
love talking. It's the newfie in me. I just like talking to people.
Well, good for you. Good for you. But you know
the best thing that the landlords need to know is that at tax time, they're going to need the course receipt for taxes. So
there
just
you go.
it. Just spend it.
Bite the bullet. Bite the bullet and educate.
Yeah, bite the bullet.
So thank you. Okay, so I'm hearing education, RTA, and credit reporting. I'm hearing the same theme throughout. So thank you very much. So I'm going to close. I want to thank all of you very much for joining this panel and offering your wonderful advice. Kayla Andrade from Ontario Landlords Watch, Donald Gray from Edmonton Eviction Services, Bill Biko from the Educated Landlord, and Rekrut from Well, I don't know, Maria, what website or
Well, it's Real Wealth Real Estate or the Ontario Landlords Association or Real Estate Media News Network. You can learn all about real estate. Thanks.
excellent. Thank you very much. So for those of you who are watching this video on YouTube, like it, subscribe, and
Share
you
it.
can also find me on t.com or on Nelda at Nelda Helps Me on Twitter or the Alberta Landlords Watch. So thank you all for joining us. And thank you once again to my esteemed colleagues. You set the bar very high for landlords and for the real estate business, and you are a credit to the industry. Have yourself a wonderful night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Inviting
Bye,
us.
everyone. Bye,
Bye.
Nelda. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Nice seeing you all.
There we go.
Step
That was
Bye,
great. It's
everyone.
great to see you all.
Yeah, nice to
Yeah.
meet you all. Take
Now I
care.
gotta find the hang up button.
Yeah,
All right.
you have to hit leave. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
There we go. Now, how do I, oh, leave. There we go. Take care.
Bye, Glenn.
Go to bed now.
I am gonna. We'll be in touch. Bye.